I and EMET, and I'm sure all of you, have been accused in the past of being war makers, people who want to rush to war, and that's always confused me a little bit because as Dr. Ledeen, as you were talking about, it seems to me that Iran has been conducting a war against us already, starting in '79 when they grabbed our hostages, and they're using the IADs in Iraq against us, and they're plotting a bombing in Georgetown. Now, I'm no international legal expert, but I would think those are acts of war.
Yes, I mean, definitely Iran has been at war with the United States since 1979, and I would add one more major charge at their door, and that is, of course, 9/11. Iran worked together with Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah for the attacks of 9/11. We have never held them responsible for that, never held them accountable for what they did on 9/11, in addition to all of the other attacks, including on our troops inside of Iraq and Afghanistan. And to this day, Iran continues to cooperate with terrorist organizations, of course, including Hezbollah, threatening not only us, but our friends and allies in the region, most notably Israel. So I think that Dr. Ledeen, though, is exactly spot on with his observation that what our administration is doing is intended, fully intended, consciously, deliberately intended to withdraw American power and influence in the world and to allow Iran to be the hegemon of the Persian Gulf region. I think it went something like this. Coming into office, that administration, our administration, knew that it was going to withdraw, certainly from Iraq, from Afghanistan, and more broadly take back our power and influence because, as Michael says, we are seen as a force for ill in the world. Well, something was going to fill in behind that. In North Africa, that was going to be the Sunni side of Islam. Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood were to be allowed to rise to dominance in North Africa. We saw some people still insist on calling the Arab Spring, the Islamic uprising. Tunisia and Libya and Egypt didn't turn out maybe exactly as they all expected, but in the first instance, those uprisings were aided and abetted and supported by the United States to the benefit of the Muslim Brotherhood, and in Libya, we ran guns to Al-Qaeda to do that. Now, in the Persian Gulf region, I think it was a question of balance, to be even about things, and that there, Iran was to be allowed to be the hegemon, to be the Shiite hegemon, and that would include nuclear weapons if they wanted them.
When Khomeini took over Iran, he said, a reporter, an American reporter, asked him on the plane, how do you feel about Iran that now you're going back home after all these years in exile? He said, Hichi means nothing. He has no feelings for Iran. He also, later on, said that Iran, for him and for his regime, is only a foundation, a foothold, and a source for him to take over, spread Islam and take over the rest of the world. So Iran, for this regime, for the clergies, the people of Iran don't matter. The Iran itself don't matter. They keep what they are preaching in Iran among Iranians, that you are nothing and nobody without Islam. But the nuclear bomb for Khamenei means a guarantee of the Islamist rule in Iran, and a guarantee for their spreading their power throughout Middle East and then wherever they can go, however, by whatever means that they can do that. Therefore, Khamenei has to have the nuclear bomb as a guarantee for their rule in Iran. Also, Khamenei knows that with United States, he can't make a deal. But with Europeans, he can. With Russians, Russians have been the supporters of the clergies in Iran for 200 years. They've been buddies and friends. And in 1979, all the Communist Party headquartered in the Russian embassy joined the Islamist Khomeini against America. So Russians are friends of Khamenei. Europeans want to make deals and get the cheapest oil they can, and Khamenei will indulge them. And therefore, here is United States. And what is Mr. Obama going to do? And this is what Iranian people are looking to America for support, because Western Europeans are the old imperialists. They are not liked and respected in Iran. Russia is their enemy. In 2009 uprising, when the renter crowd of the regime started saying death to America, the Iranian kids who were revolting on the streets started chanting death to Russia. But these are all the sentiments that lives in that country. What we need is to support them. But we are supporting Khamenei.
Again, as I think I was beginning to explain, the policy of this administration is to leave the Middle East, to pull out American influence and power from the Middle East broadly, from Morocco to wherever, past Iran and Afghanistan. And that Islam is the preferred. It is understood that Islam will fill in behind and rise to power. That is the desired outcome. That is the policy. West Africa, or in the West, North Africa was designated for the Sunnis because they're most prominent there. And so when the secular dictators, and remember who fell, Ben Ali in Tunisia, Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. Why were they targeted? Why did they fall? Because they did not enforce Islamic law. That's why they were targeted by the Islamic uprising. And our administration agreed with that and allowed that and helped that to happen. We were totally behind the Muslim Brotherhood taking over in Egypt. As I said, we were intimately involved in overthrowing Gaddafi, who had been our ally. He had al-Qaeda in his jails. That's policy. We did that on purpose, not we the people, obviously, but our administration decided to do that and to allow the powers of Islamic Jihad and Sharia to rise to power in these places. And all I'm saying is there was a balance. The Sunnis got North Africa, and the Iranians are the obvious Shiite hegemon dominant power for the Persian Gulf.
Well, if he is, you're going to have to prove it, because I haven't seen it. I mean, it's certainly true that there's lots of Muslim Brotherhood people running around the White House. They were running around the White House under Bush. The office of the Deputy Secretary of Defense called me up during Bush and said, "We've got this wonderful Muslim Brotherhood guy here in town. Would you please go to lunch with him?" And I said, "No, I don't go to lunch with people who want to kill me." But you don't need that degree of conspiracy and intellectual depth, if you like, in a White House that shows almost no sign of intellectual depth. Right? In order to at least explain satisfactorily what's going on. It may be true. But if it's true, I don't know it. And I haven't met with anybody who both claims to know it and can prove it. I mean, I don't see the evidence for it. And you don't need it. It's enough to be a stupid liberal to explain what's going on. And if you listen to them talk, you know, not the scripted speeches, but the impromptu press conferences or comments and so on, you're not dealing with deep thinking geniuses. You're dealing with really what I would say is a sort of typical undergraduate level Ivy League liberal arts students. That's what I see. That's what I always saw, by the way. I never saw this genius.
I saw your.
Well, there's another option, I think, with regard to Iran, and that is, of course, their good buddies over in North Korea. And some would say that this partnership already has had nuclear weapons tested in North Korea. I don't know that, but some people think that may be the case. Certainly, we have seen representatives of the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in North Korea on a regular basis and at launch test sites for nuclear-capable ICBMs. That is certainly a fact. And in this regard, one of the things that is most concerning is that we know for a fact that North Korea does have a nuclear bomb capability, and they have already tested it, whether it was on behalf of Iran or whether Iran shared in the data from the tests. You know, it almost not doesn't matter. But the thing about it is that North Korea has been testing some very small kiloton explosive yield kind of warheads in the 1 to 3 kiloton range. If you think a normal nuclear bomb, 15, 20, 25 kilotons maybe, 1 to 3 explosive size, but huge output of gamma rays. What I'm getting at is the North Korean capability in the EMP, electromagnetic pulse weapon, which Iran also very likely is working on too. Iran has ICBMs that the Pentagon estimates will be able to reach continental United States by next year. North Korea a year ago was flying a satellite in a southern orbital trajectory over the United States in a way that suggests that it has the capability to reach us anytime they want. These are the concerns, and that partnership, I think, might be the answer, at least in part, to your question.
No, I just want to say one thing. Pakistan had nuclear weapons for 10 years, and we did not know it. And they only tested it when India tested theirs. So this talk about they have to test it is not true. At least historically, it hasn't been true. Maybe it's true today. Everybody's got theories. But as I say, I think it's a mistake to get dragged into the week-long discussion of this problem. It's much better to stay at a level where we can see what's going on and understand who is who and at least identify what the basic issues are. And questions, do you have to test? What about a computer with this many kilotons? Do they have an EMP capacity, et cetera, et cetera? They're important, but they're for the experts. They're detailed questions. What we have to understand as citizens, because we have to vote for people and we have to decide, you know, what direction do we want to go. The questions we have to deal with are the life and death questions. What does Khamenei want? Why is Obama doing what Khamenei wants? These are big questions, and these are the ones that the electorate is going to have to come to grips with sooner or later, and I hope there are some Republicans in the new Congress who can deal with these better than we've been dealing with them so far. Yes, no question. He certainly knows what's best for everybody. The question we have to deal with is why, after 6 years of getting spat on, does he still cling to that view? And that turns into some kind of psychosis or something. I don't know what it is. But I mean, how long is it possible to persist in this kind of delusion? Well, 6 years anyway, maybe more. Yeah, it says Manda. Manda's got to support the Iranian people. I mean, there's a much higher percentage of Iranians willing to take to the streets to challenge the regime than there were Russians, Czechs, Poles, etc., to challenge the Kremlin. And yet it worked against the Kremlin. If that will work against the Soviet Empire, it will certainly work against these people who, and another subject we haven't discussed much, are among the most incompetent rulers, managers, organizers, etc., in the history of the world.
Well, adding to what Michael just said, not only supporting the people of Iran, stop supporting the regime, stop talking to regime, stop catering to regime, negotiating with them, stop like Canada has done. Canada closed their embassy in Iran and kicked Iranian embassy out of Canada. But we don't have an embassy, Iranian embassy in the United States. We have an office of the Iranian government's interest that has more employees and more people in America than any embassy would have. Why don't we close them down? Why don't we kick them out? On the top of all of these, support the people of Iran. And it's not going to take long before they are overthrown and Iranian people will have a democratic separation of religion and state country, and they'll be our friend.
Well, above all, base for Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Above everything else, it's the base for Hezbollah. Where does Hezbollah go if Assad falls and an anti-Iranian government comes to power in Damascus? And then secondly, very important because of ports access to the Mediterranean, and that's terribly important for the Russians. And so there you have Assad's two big allies, the Russians and the
Why
Iranians.
does Hezbollah become so important to the Iranian strategic plan for the future?
Hezbollah is Iran.
Iranian.
Oh, yeah, I know that, but why is that particular, I mean,
It's their army, it's their foreign, it's that, along with the Revolutionary Guards, is
Expanding.
their army.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't know exactly, but I think we're foolish to think that Iran does not already have several functioning, working nuclear warheads. We have no idea what's under the bunkers and the tunnels in the mountains. Remember, every single site that we know of in the Iranian nuclear weapons program today was revealed by somebody else. Iran didn't fess up to any of them, which would have been its obligation under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, to which it remains a signatory. So to think that they haven't got, I mean, you know, just as Michael said, 10 years, Pakistan had a capability that they did not test and did not demonstrate to the world. Iran's got bombs already. They already do. The question is marrying them to the missiles, and I don't know that that's been done yet. And then also, would they actually use them? The question might be, well, once they have it, and it's known that they have it, they're the new strong horse already, and that's what they want. And we seem to be willing to acquiesce in that, their domination of the region. They may never need to use it. So how much time left for a strike? Well, probably none. You know, question not so much in the next 2 years what the United States will do, but what will Israel do? Israel can't wait. I don't know why it's waited this long. Actually, those bunker busters, as they say, can go 200 meters before exploding, so that's good. The other thing, though, to think about is that you really don't have to penetrate all the way down and blow the whole thing up. All you have to do is collapse the entryways. It becomes a sarcophagus. But you know, will we ever reach the point of deciding to do that? Certainly not under this president. Would Israel? Or are there other ways to do it? We've talked, I mean, I mentioned, you know, some of the things that have happened. You had, you know, the attack on Parchin. January of 2013, there were reports that Fordow had suffered an explosion as well. And of course, the Stuxnet from the cyber. So what's been happening, I think, is that Israel has been nipping away at their capability, but is not capable and has not yet not capable of taking out the whole thing by themselves. They can set it back, but not take out the whole thing. And the whole thing's not going to stop anyway until, as Manda says, there's a change in the regime. As long as a single mullah is alive in the world, they're going to try to get a bomb.